Thinking about investing in real estate in Venice, Florida?
Here's some things that you should know, and the first one is
the real estate market in Venice has been very strong over the past few years, and it is very popular with retirees, families, snowbirds, and also remote workers.
And we definitely have seen some really big price appreciation, like a lot of Florida, but Venice even more so than a lot of Florida over the last few years, with especially during like the COVID years. So that has really changed the dynamic of the area. But over the last year and a half now, we've seen prices kind of flatten out a little bit more, and inventory has started to build a little bit more, making now possibly an ideal time to look for investing, depending on where the market goes, which we don't have a crystal ball, but I think a lot of that's going to have to do with the economy over the next few years.
Depending on the area, you can find homes from around $320,000 to $360,000. Those homes might need a little bit of work, but those could be some great deals, especially if you're a seasoned investor where you already know what you're doing.
And obviously there's going to be differences from the time that we're filming this to when you're seeing it. So, that price range could change. And also, of course, it's going to change depending on the areas. For example, South Venice, you can get a little bit more home for your money and the home prices are a little bit less. If you're on Venice Island, it's going to cost more because you're near to the downtown and the beaches and all the stuff people really want to do. But on the flip side, there is still plenty to do in the South Venice. Venice Gardens area, again, is a little more affordable. You got a lot of shopping and restaurants in those areas as well. You're just a little bit further away from the water in those instances.
And like we mentioned before, Venice does attract a lot of retirees and snowbirds. So the potential for Airbnb and short-term rentals, it's very, very high. There is a lot of people that keep coming to the same rentals once they found one that they like. They just keep booking that same rental. So that means that if Snowbird loves your rental, they will keep coming back to your rental.
And that's definitely something to keep in a strong consideration when you're talking seasonal rentals. A couple factors with that. Number one, being in an area that allows that. So Sarasota County, basically outside of barrier islands, does not allow the rentals to be under 30 days. And then also within that, if you're going to be like in a gated community, a lot of times they'll have their restrictions as well. Sometimes it'll be 6 months, sometimes it'll be years, some maybe even up to 2 years. So those are things you'll want to keep in mind. But within that as well, keeping in mind the seasonality of things. So like you're going to have no problem renting it out in the winter months. We're talking basically from November, December, all the way till like April, May. And those months are going to be hot. They're going to be like super competitive with people just trying to pile in and find a place. Like you can go on Facebook groups for the Venice area and people are always like, we're looking for a place. Is there anything available? Does anyone know of anything? So that should give you a sense for how hot of a commodity they are in that time of year. When you come to the summer months, though, it's nice everywhere in the United States. So people aren't looking to get away to Venice to, get out of the cold weather. But on top of that, the beaches and things like that, aren't necessarily as desirable because they can go to maybe lakes in the Midwest or whatever the case may be, or in the Northeast coast, they got their own ocean access there as well. So those months you're going to also have to figure out, them being a little bit slower, maybe lowering your prices if you are doing a seasonal rental.
Or another great option too would be if you are planning to use that rental as a vacation home, instead of coming down during winter when everyone's here, try to plan out your vacations for summer when the prices are not only lower, but the demand is also very low.
And honestly, I feel like that might be an overlooked time to come use the place because a lot of people think, again, like, oh, it's cold, I want to get out of that area. But Venice is super awesome to be in during the summer months for one reason. Yes, it is very hot and humid. I will not deny that, but it's such a breeze to get around the city. There's just a lot less people, a lot less congestion. So you kind of have the beaches to yourself. You got the shops and the restaurants to yourself a little bit more. The stores aren't as packed. So on that side of things, it is pretty nice.
But also long-term rentals do well here. We do have a lot of retirees moving to the area and maybe purchasing a home. It's not viable for them. And also the families that are moving to the area. A lot of new families moving to the area. So long-term rentals are very, very common around the area as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that kind of want to set up shop for 6 months a year, see if they like it, or maybe they're waiting for a new construction home to be built, or they want to just get a feel for the area while they look at where they want to buy. And so long-term rentals are definitely a great option for that. And also one other thing to keep in mind with that seasonality that we talked about before with Airbnbs, obviously the price tag is going to go way, way up during season. So it's not uncommon for places to rent for $5,000 a month or more, just to give you a ballpark idea. Obviously every place is going to be different. You want to run your numbers with something like AirDNA is a good example of a website you could use. And then, also figuring out what those costs are going to look like in the off-season months where, you know, that could drop all the way down to $1,000 to $2,000 a month.
And while short-term rentals are around $5,000 or so, long-term rentals are around $2,000 depending on the size of the home and location, but you can find anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 a month.
So let's talk pros and cons of investing in Venice.
The first pro is we do have a high demand and growing population. There's a lot of people still moving to the Venice area.
And with more people visiting the Venice area and the area becoming more known, I think on a national stage, you start seeing it more articles, you start seeing it more in YouTube videos like this, and more people just talking about it. We're shocked every time, like we have family that comes to visit from Wisconsin, how many people they are talking to, and they're like, yeah, I know about Venice too. So it's definitely becoming a little bit more of a hot spot, especially with Welland Park, which we know is technically Northport, but that area is super booming, one of the fastest growing master plan communities in all the United States. So with all that kind of happening in the area, it's drawing a lot more attention to the area and making it more of a popular destination for both short-term and full-time living.
And because of that, pro number 2, our property values have increased quite a bit over the past few years.
And obviously, if you are renting that property out, it's nice to have someone paying for that, and you can gain that equity in the property without having to necessarily keep putting that money in every month. So, you know, if you have the amount of money to put into the down payment or pay for the place outright, that could absolutely be a nice long-term investment for your future.
Pro number 3 is that Florida does not have income tax. So because of that, a lot of people do decide to move to Florida because they want to save a little bit of money on the income taxes.
So that's one other perk you can add when you're promoting your property to people. If it is a long-term rental, saying, hey, come move down here, save yourself a bunch of money every year in your taxes, and live that paradise lifestyle.
Pro number 4, like we mentioned before, we do have a very strong seasonal rental market.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great time of the year to make some great cash flow. But again, you want to keep in mind with that, you know, you want to use those months to kind of make up for the months where you're not going to be filling the unit as much or making less, or maybe a little bit of both. So definitely something you want to keep in mind when you're doing the more short-term rental route.
And for the cons, con number 1 is the HOA and short-term rental restrictions. Like we mentioned before, in Sarasota County, there is a 30-day minimum rental. So even if you are not in an HOA community now, you do still have the county rules and regulations that you do have to follow. But a lot of times when snowbirds, for example, are planning to come down to Florida, they're not coming down for 30 days, they're coming down for 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, and on the dollars and cents side of things, you know, if you were able to rent it out just maybe for a day or 2 days, yeah, you would probably make a little bit more per month, but there's a little bit more maintenance involved with that and upkeep. And then on top of that, you know, you have to worry about, you know, booking it multiple days. Whereas when you're going with 30 days plus, it's not that hard to get that done in Venice, at least in the winter months. So in that time of year, I don't think it, even though you maybe aren't making maybe quite as much as you potentially could, it does save you a little bit of hassle. And again, it's not going to be that hard to book it for those 30 days. Plus, I think it's going to affect you more in the summer months though.
Con number 2 would be the hurricanes and flood insurance costs. Also having the homeowner's insurance, a lot of times if it is a rental, it is going to be a little more costly than if it was a primary residence. So having those costs could be a con depending on how much you're renting the property for.
And we've been in Venice for about a little over I think we're going on almost 6 years, 5.5 years, 6 years.
6 years.
6 years. And so we did not see much action from hurricanes our first 4 years, I think. And it's like the last 2.5 years where there has been a little bit more. And we have seen firsthand that there can be some damage that needs to be attended to, which is another thing you'll have to keep in mind, you know, the costs and the hassle of dealing with getting things fixed. If maybe a lanai screen breaks, maybe shingles get lost, things like that. Just depends on, you know, the condition of the home, the age of the home. So those are all things you're going to want to look at. And again, get connected with a local realtor that really knows the area. By the way, I don't know if we mentioned it, but we do help people buy or sell homes in the Venice area. So if you're looking to do either,
make sure to call, text, or email our real estate team, 941-221-1897. We've helped a lot of people move to the area. We'd love to help you too.
And if you're looking to get rid of maybe a house in the area because you're done with the hurricanes, get a hold of us for that as well. But definitely, you know, having someone local will help a lot with understanding some of the things to look for in the property and some of the potential issues with, you know, damage that could be caused by the way the home's constructed. Maybe there's trees around, maybe it's the age of the roof, whatever the case may be. There's all these different factors that we can kind of help you take a look at.
Con number 3 is market cycles. As you know, Florida has ups and downs. Right now, I would say we're kind of like in the downs with having a lot more inventory. So there is a lot more potential of getting great deal right now because the market is not as competitive, but the last few years were very, very competitive.
Yeah, I mean, obviously everyone knows about the 2008 crash, and I think of anyone getting hit hardest by that, it was Florida, right? But then we also saw some of the biggest appreciation through the COVID years. And so right now it's kind of hard to say what's going to happen depending on the stock market, the economy, jobs, all that stuff. And no one really has a crystal ball, but right now things have been relatively flat as far as appreciation, maybe dipping slightly down in the Venice area, like 1% a year the last 2 years. So it's really hard to know where things are going to go depending on interest rates and all these other factors, and if we're going to maybe see another big downturn. So that's definitely something you want to keep in mind. That being said, with things kind of staying flat over the last few years, it has kind of almost made up for that rapid appreciation. So that's something you'll kind of have to figure into your equation and do your best guess on, because I don't think anyone knows exactly what's going to happen over the next couple of years.
Con number 4 is high property taxes. Property taxes right now are a little bit higher because our home appreciation has been a lot higher as well. So that goes hand in hand. And for Sarasota County, our property taxes, I typically like to plan between 1 and 1.5% of the purchase price, just because we don't know what the house is going to appraise for with the county appraiser's office. But typically a good number to calculate, it's between 1 and 1.5% of the purchase price, and that will give you a ballpark idea of what your taxes are going to be.
And to piggyback on that, to go into some more detailed numbers with flood and homeowners insurance costs, for us, we're in a 3-2, about 1,600 square feet, about a couple miles from the beach. Roof is newish. We're paying about $2,600 a month. Now that went up about $1,000 about 2 years ago. And so that can maybe give you an idea of like what you're going to look at for homeowners insurance costs if you shop around for rates. That's one mistake some people will make. They don't really look around for different rates, and then they end up paying like some of these things. We see people like think that everyone pays $7,000 a year in Florida, and that's just simply not the case. Now you have an older home closer to the beach, maybe it's got non-hurricane impact windows, older roof, like all those things are going to affect it going up. And then as far as flood insurance, you could look at anywhere from like $1,000 a year on up. Again, there's a lot of details that are going to go into it, which is why you'll want to have an idea of what you're dealing with the home, and a local real estate agent can help you plan for those numbers a lot more concretely.
So if you're considering investing in Venice, Florida, some of the best neighborhoods to invest in would be Venice Island, because you are so close to the water there. It's very walkable. The downtown is also there, and our downtown is a historic downtown, which is a great area to just walk around, grab a bite to eat, grab some coffee or ice cream. And we also have basketball courts, tennis courts, racquetball courts in the downtown area as well.
And there's also basically from that downtown with all the shops and restaurants, and there's so much to do, multiple blocks to pick from. You got the sport courts right after that, and then you got what's called Heritage Park, which is a really wide median with trails and trees and lights, and it's just gorgeous. And you can walk that all the way to the beach. It's probably like anywhere from a half mile to a mile walk to the beach, and then Venice Beach is right at the end of that. So it's just an amazing way to connect the downtown and the beach. Like the whole area is pretty magical, I think is a good way to explain it. And then you can just go down a little bit further. You got the jetty. And if you hang a left from the downtown, you can head over to Sharky's and the fishing pier and get some tiki hut drink action going on.
And more beaches, and yes, Casperson Beach as well, where you can find a lot of shark's teeth, prehistoric shark's teeth, and shelling as well, if you're into that.
So yeah, that's kind of like where all the action is. That's where a lot of the people want to be. So because of that, the price is a little bit higher for both buying and for renting in that area, and it's highly desirable for that.
Another area is the South Venice area, and also Venice Gardens. Venice Gardens will put you closer to Venice Beach and the downtown area. There are fewer regulations there, and then South Venice puts you a little further away from the island, Venice Island, and those beaches, but it puts you very close to Minnesota Key Beach.
And both of those are great. If you, again, you want a little bit lower price for the home, you don't want to have the HOA restrictions, you're good to go on that side of things. But again, both of them aren't very far from beaches. Like you're talking 15 minutes max, probably closer to 10, maybe even 5 minutes if you're on the right end of either of those neighborhoods. And both of them are also very near a lot of other shopping centers for more of your big box or commercial stuff, like your Target, your Walmart, different restaurants, different chains, things along those lines. There's a whole big strip outlet right by the Venice Gardens area that's got chiropractic and Mexican restaurants and Bell's and Burlington, all kinds of stuff.
And for long-term rentals, all those areas are great as well. And also being in an HOA community, now you don't have the issues of having the restrictions because you are going to rent for 12 months at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. Just kind of gives you more options. And if you're looking to go the long-term rental route, then basically anywhere in the area is an option. But again, you'll want to have an understanding of some of the little details and nuances of what it is that you're looking for, what you're trying to accomplish, and what kind of person you're trying to get to rent so you can get something in the right area.
If you're thinking about investing in Venice or Sarasota, Northport, Englewood areas, those are all areas we serve, as well as the Orlando Metro. So make sure to call, text, or email our real estate team, 941-221-1897. We'd love to help you out.
And if you want to know more about what it's like to live in Venice, so you have an idea of what to expect for the people that you're looking to rent to, check out this video right here. If you found this video helpful, hit that like button and live breezy.